Hello class. So my micro teaching assignment for EDU1107 was on Kohlberg's theory of moral development. So Lawrence Kohlberg, he developed his theory on the stages of moral development in 1958. So this theory, it was based on Piaget's theory of moral judgment of children that Piaget came up with in 1932. So Kohlberg wanted to dive deeper into Piaget's theory and move it further. So Kohlberg's theory focused on the thinking process that occurs when one decides whether a behavior is right or wrong. So how did he do this? How did he determine his theory? Through some stories. So Kohlberg told stories involving moral dilemmas to children of different ages. And one of his most famous stories is about a man named Heinz. So over the next couple slides, we are going to go look over the story of Heinz. So there once was a man named Heinz. He lived somewhere in Europe, and his wife developed a particular type of cancer. And his wife was dying. The doctor said, there's nothing that we can do for her here, but a chemist recently came up with a drug that may be able to help her. So Heinz naturally decided, I'm going to go talk to this chemist. So Heinz goes and talks to the chemist and asks him if he could buy the drug. And the chemist tells him, if you're going to buy it, you're going to buy it for this amount. And this amount was 10 times the amount that it cost to make the drug. So unfortunately, that was way out of Heinz's price range, and he could not afford that. So Heinz went and talked to some friends and family. In fact, he begged his friends and family for money so that he could pay for his wife and the drug. So he talks to friends and family, and at the end of that, he's only able to get about half the money required to purchase the drug. So Heinz decides to go and see the chemist anyway and talk to him about buying the drug. So Heinz goes and explains his situation. He says, listen, my wife is dying and this is the only drug that can help her. I have to have this drug. Can I buy it off you for half the amount that you're asking for? So even though it's half the amount, you're still making a profit on this drug. And the chemist said, nope, no can do. The chemist was going to sell it for his price and was not going to lower that price. And then Heinz asked, well, can I give you half the money now and half later? And yet the chemist still refused. Heinz at this point was running out of ideas. He did not know what to do. So I want you to ask yourself, what should Heinz do in this situation? If you were Heinz, what do you think you would do? So here are just 3 options. These are not all the options that he has, but each of these tie into Kohlberg's theory, so we will get into these as we go through his theory. So one option is that Heinz should steal the drug and not go to prison, as this would be unfair. Another option, Heinz should not steal the drug since he would be breaking the law. And a third option, Heinz should steal the drug and accept any prison sentence that comes with that. So what did Heinz do? He decided to steal the drugs, knowing the consequences that he would face. So a couple other questions that Kohlberg would ask about the Heinz dilemma. Should Heinz have stolen the drug? Would it change anything if Heinz did not love his wife? What if the person that was dying was a stranger? Would that make any difference at all in this situation? And lastly, should the police arrest the chemist for murder if the woman dies? So I want you to pause this video for just a minute and answer these questions to yourself. What do you think your answers would be? What would your reasoning be? So I'll give you a moment and then we will continue. So Kohlberg's results. He gathered these results by interviewing 72 boys from Chicago between the ages of 10 and 16. And during these interviews that lasted 2 hours, to each child, he presented a series of 10 stories with moral dilemmas in them. And he used these dilemmas to come up with his theory. Based on the results, Kohlberg identified 3 distinct levels of moral reasoning, each with 2 Sorry about that. So he identified 3 distinct levels of moral reasoning, each with 2 substages. And something that's interesting to note about Kohlberg in this study, he was not interested in whether the boys judged the actions of Hines and other people in the dilemmas as right or wrong. About what they should do or shouldn't do. He was more interested in the reasons that the children would give for the decision that they've made. And he found that these reasons would change as kids got older. So let's look at the 3 levels that Kohlberg came up with. First, level 1, pre-conventional morality. So this covered, according to Kohlberg, most students 9 years old and younger, and also could cover students up to 10 to 13 years old. So mainly kids in elementary school. And there are adults that fit into this too, but this is primarily what he was looking at in his study. So reasoning at this point is based on the consequences of one's actions, and the focus is inward. It's on one's self. And that's what guides all decisions in stage 1 and stage 2. So in stage 1, obedience and punishment orientation, an individual who's in this stage may ask, what can I do in order to avoid punishment? Determination of good versus bad is based on what adults and authority figures have told them, what these people at stage 1 and 2 have learned from authorities. So this reminds me of soldiers during the Holocaust. You know, this whole idea of punishment orientation and what authorities have told me. There were a lot of soldiers during the Holocaust that committed these awful acts, and their reasoning, they were carrying out orders under the threat of punishment. So there's that question, what can I do to avoid punishment? And that was overarching all the decision making. Then someone in stage 2, individualism and exchange. So someone in this stage, and remember, the focus is still inward on oneself. Someone might ask, what is in it for me? The whole idea with stage 2 is that the right action or behavior for a situation consists of what will satisfy one's own needs. So let's go back and look at Hines. So if he chose not to steal the drug strictly for the reason of not wanting to go to jail, then he would probably be in the pre-conventional stage of moral development. Now, I told you there are a lot of options, and I'd be curious to hear your reasoning behind some different options. So what if Kohlberg decided to steal the drug? What reasoning could he use to still be in the pre-conventional stage of moral development? So now let's move on to level 2, conventional morality. So Kohlberg felt that most adolescents and adults would fit into this level. The focus shifts from the inward focus on oneself to relationships with others, significant others, friends, family, and also to societal norms and rules. And one thing that's interesting to note about Kohlberg in this is that he felt that most adults would get to stage 4 but would not move on to stage 5 or 6. He felt that was the level where most adults would get to. So looking at stage 3, good interpersonal relationships. An individual in this stage would ask, what will gain the approval of others? I want to be seen as a good person. What will get me there? So those of you that work with teenagers, and I know we have a lot of middle school and high school teachers in our class, I'm sure you've heard them say it a million times. Everybody is doing it, or if he can get away with it, why can't I? There's all this peer pressure, and values are based in conformity and loyalty to the group. So then we look at stage 4, maintaining social order. By this point, individuals have become aware of the wider rules of society. These rules and laws determine behavior. So decisions at this point in stage 4 are now based not just on what the group wants or the peer pressure, but it's based more on rules and laws and the fact that these rules and laws are needed for order. So someone in stage 4 to them it would make sense that you can't steal all of the groceries from the store without paying for them, and that if everybody did this, there would be chaos. That makes sense. That's logical reasoning for someone in stage 4. So let's go back and look at Heinz again. And remember, there's more than one option in these choices, and I would love to hear what you think, what your response would be. So if Heinz decided to steal the drug, knowing the consequences, knowing that he would go to jail, he would probably be in the conventional stage of moral development. So a question I'd love to see you answer in the forum is, if Heinz chose not to steal the drug, what reasoning could be used that he would still be in the conventional stage? Then we move on to level 3, and this would be post-conventional morality. So as I said earlier, Heinz felt that many people do not reach this level of reasoning. In fact, he believed that only 10 to 15% of people were capable of this kind of abstract thinking. So what this means is that most people take their moral views from those around them in the previous levels, but as you progress through, only a minority will think through ethical principles for themselves. So what values apply to all situations and all societies? So someone in stage 4, for example, they might make the statement that justice demands punishment. Heinz should go to jail for stealing the drug because it's breaking the rules. Someone in stage 5 or 6 might find that statement to be ridiculous. And let's look into that a little more. So in stage 5, someone might say that Heinz should not be punished because life is more important than breaking the law. Heinz's wife should be able to have that drug because it'll save her life, and he should not be punished for stealing it. Then let's continue to look at level 3. Then we go into stage 6, universal principles. So in this stage, people have developed their own sense of moral guidelines, and some of these might not fit within the law. Examples include human rights, justice, equality, and a person in this stage is ready to go against society to defend these principles. And in fact, they often will value these principles more than their own life. So how do you think Heinz would fit into the post-conventional level while not stealing the drug? So as I was doing my research on Kohlberg's theory, I found this image in this diagram, and I really liked it because it gave simple statements about each of the stages of what someone in that stage would say. And I know it's hard to read them on the video, so I'm going to go over them with you. So remember, we have category 1 down here, level 1, pre-conventional morality. So stage 1 and stage 2. As you remember, the focus is on oneself. So someone in stage 1, they might say, I do it so I don't get in trouble. Remember, it's avoiding that punishment. And someone in stage 2 will say, I do it so that I get something out of it. What is in it for me? Then we move on to level 2, which is conventional morality. And in stage 3 of that, remember, the focus is going more towards others. So I do it so you like me. That whole peer pressure, everybody else is doing it. People will like me, this makes me a good person. These are all reasonings that people in stage 3 will use. Then we move on to stage 4, which, if you recall, Kohlberg said most adults will get to stage 4, but won't progress to 5 or 6. So in stage 4, someone would say, I do it because it is the law and I respect the law. So then we move on to Kohlberg's 10 to 15% of people that reach stage 5 and 6 of post-conventional morality. So in stage 5, someone would say, I do it because of a social contract that we have with each other. And then lastly, stage 6, I do it because it is the right thing to do. It might be against the law, but it is the right thing to do. So one other thing I want to mention about Kohlberg's stages is that he believed that people passed through all the stages without skipping any. So, for example, if someone got to stage 4, they would be able to understand the reasoning for people in stages 1, 2, and 3. But on the other side of that, if someone was in stage 2 of reasoning, of moral development, they would understand stage 1 reasoning, but they would not be able to rationalize or reason anything above that, stages 3 through 6. And finally, someone in the post-conventional level, they'd be able to understand anybody's reasoning in all of the stages. So as we conclude this presentation, I have some questions for you guys. So my first one is, according to Kohlberg, how do people progress through the different levels and stages? Next question, at what level and stage do you believe that you find yourself? And does it change depending on the situation? Do you have any criticisms of Kohlberg's theory? As I was researching, I found some criticisms and even had some of my own, and I will share those with you in the forum, but I don't want to share them right now because I want to hear from you guys and hear what criticisms that you might have. And my last question is a little higher level question, but I want you to create your own Kohlberg story scenario and include a moral dilemma with that. And after you've done that, I want you to provide an example of a response for each level of morality. Not for all 6 stages, you don't have to do that, but I want to see one for the pre-conventional level, conventional level, and post-conventional level. So I will be posting these questions on the forum under this video, and I look forward to discussing with you and seeing what you guys think. Thank you so much.